Our next speaker is Caillou Guan from UIUC, and the title of his talk is Integrating Interdisciplinary Domain Science, Supercomputing, and AI to Revolutionize Monitoring and Modeling for Agriculture.
Yeah, it's a great honor to be here. And then I shortened the title. Really want to talk about some of the overall research programs that I have been building with a team of effort. And then what we've been really committed to do, later on I'm going to talk about that vision, is really try to revolutionize how to monitor and model agriculture in a changing climate. And then so when I first hear about the C3AI Digital Transformation Institute, I was thinking very hard about that because I think the research that we've been working on is really to do the digital transformation for agriculture. So I'm gonna break that down. So it's work with a lot of the collaborations internationally, and then with multiple founders, and the most recent C3AI support really greatly appreciated that. We actually use C3AI for multiple purposes in their computation infrastructure, as well as the computing facilities and support us to scale up the work. Okay, so I will start with providing some of the big picture. And then so first, we understand the climate change risk. As we increase the temperature, crop yield potentially will be reduced, especially when you cross a certain temperature threshold. At the same time, the whole population is increasing, and we have increased demand of food. And then these two things are contradicting with each other. And then at the same time, what's also very important is about the sustainability part. And then so I draw this in my career proposal of NSF, but this is a good example of sustainability issues in our Middle West. What we have is we oversupply applications of the fertilizer, and then the crop yield increased, but at the same time, there's a lot of environmental issues that caused. And then so there's really water, food, nutrient connections, but we have the problems of over-application of nitrogen and phosphorus that cause the broader impact of the environment too. So the question that we have, or particularly I am thinking very hard, is how do climate and human activities control ecosystem productivity and then ecosystem service, particularly for agriculture system. And then when we understand this, I am deeply believed it's the science and processes that explain things. And then so what we really need to do is the interdisciplinary domain science that really bring the whole knowledge together, because when you try to tackle such a broad, complicated questions, you need multiple disciplines. At the same time, there's AI role. And then so how can we optimally manage our landscape to achieve the co-sustainability of environmental productivity and environmental resources? And then this is a practical question. And this basically, it means that once we understand the process, we want to build solutions. We want to build solutions for policymakers. We want to build solutions for farmers. We want to build solutions for practitioners. And then so both of them actually are both very important. Productivity of the food, as well as the environmental sustainability. How could you achieve both? And so, as I mentioned, the solution is the ultimate goal. And then to set the stage up, I'm gonna break down, what's the fundamental kind of concept behind how we should think about this. Every farmland is unique. And then if you look at this is coming from our research. We map out every single farmland of corn productivity in Illinois, actually in Champaign County. And then, so you will see the drought year of 2012 and more normal year of 2016. But look at the landscape. They all grow corn. They may have similar variety of corn. But there is a huge diversity in space, as well as in time. So in other words, every farm is different. So I'm gonna provide this framework because whenever we talk about every individual farmland, no matter its crop yield or sustainability metrics, we are talking about at least 3 dimensions that we talk about. One is the crop dimension, one is the management dimension, how farmers or how producers really do on their land to grow crop, as well as the environment dimension. There is weather information in the long-term climate, as well as the soil. And then if you think about all these 3 things are interacting to generate the outcome in every farmland. You're gonna expect that they are different because these three components are gonna be different. And then you also try to understand their interactions. And then start to think about this. Every field gonna be different. I choose randomly 3 fields in Champaign County that grow corn. They're gonna be in the different space. But at the same time, if you try to see, my goal is try to understand not only these 3 farms, I try to understand every farm in this planet, not only in the Midwest, but every farm in this planet. How are we gonna tackle this problem? So quickly move to the vision slide. My vision is to really advance the science and technology to enable us to monitor, model, and manage every piece of land in our planet. And I deeply believe the technology, the science, domain science and technology and AI can really help us to achieve that goal. We couldn't miss this. We have to integrate all of them. And then also this part related to track carbons, related to improve crop yield, related to how you do the precision agriculture, also related to how you sustainably manage the landscape. And then, so again, these slides, I'm gonna focus quite a bit in the Midwest because this is a lot of the work has been done in the past 5-6 years. So for all of people's information, Midwest is really great as a global food basket. We produce 1/3 of the global corn serving. And then if you keep zooming in, Champaign County alone has 20,000 farm fields. Every field potentially are doing their own practice. Every field are doing their own practice. And then my problem essentially is trying to say, can we do every field in great detail, understand below ground conditions, above ground conditions, holistically about their productivity and environmental conditions, but also how can we do that for millions of fields? And then so the tools that I use a lot of field level measurements, primarily tapped into the existing Illinois infrastructure of research at the farmland, but we put basically the satellite sensors, move down to the ground, measure things. Once we compare the satellite understanding, the remote sensing signals with the biophysical aspect, we link that with the satellite, with the airborne and with the satellite, such that we can actually scale that up. And ultimately, we bring both of them to the process-based models. We spend a lot of effort working with the best domain scientists to improve process-based models. And then the last speaker said, integrating data and the model. This is exactly what we did. We integrate a lot of the research data set and the operational data with the model and try to achieve the best prediction. In that process, I really benefited by using AI. There's a lot of computer science professors that I collaborate with, and I'm very excited to also be officially affiliated with computer science at our university. And at the same time, Blue Water's supercomputer helped my career tremendously. And then so I'm gonna really go into the details in the next few minutes. What do I mean by integrating all of them together? So this is the frameworks that we got funded by the DOE ARPA-E, but we have the expanded effort from the C3 AI funding. So what we really mean is we have a lot of the effort that we need. Just go back to. We have a lot of the effort that we need from the sensing side to look at every localized information. For any field, you have the sensing information for localized, but a lot of the information is above ground. So what you try to do is integrating this above ground information with the process-based models at the local scale, and then just do the model data integration. And that's basically the model constraint of using the real data. But that process is gonna be really computationally expensive. So how will you do that in a very cost-effective way, as well as how you try to leverage the AI information? And all of that bring to this framework we call the system of the system solution. So in other words, you got to use different components, put them together to generate one solution that can work. And then the first part is the sensing. And then so we do a lot of the ground truth because anything you can claim from the sensor, you have to have the ground truth. But the ground truth is really expensive. So how do we really scale that up to generate some of the expanded or augmented labels that we can use? So we use airborne hyperspectrum. So I'm gonna go to further details later. But then after you have the intermediate scale, what you do is you actually use the AI, use the supercomputers to go to the satellite scale that leverage the satellite coverage ubiquitous coverage. And then so I'm gonna give a few examples. The tools that we extensively use are the hyperspectral sensing. It's not multispectral, not thermal sensing. It's hyperspectral, has thousands of spectral bands. We are not use that for operational use. We use that to really be a ground truth augmenter or ground truth collector. Instead of collecting leaves on the ground, what we do is we drive a hyperspectral sensor on the airplane and collect a lot of the data set, but with very deep spectral information. And this spectral information can really get to you the information about very detailed information like canopy nitrogen, like photosynthesis rate, like residual cover, or surface soil concentration of the soil organic carbon. And then so by using this technology, this is our platform. We use our sensor technology. We build the programs, have the way to really process the image in the supercomputer. But then what we end up having is we deployed our ground truth. So you still need the ground truth. But what we also do is when we deploy the ground truth, we get these leaf level information. We fly airplane, we get intermediate scale, but much, much larger and richer information by using airborne hyperspectrum. And then reach the accuracy. You lose a little bit accuracy, but it's still high enough that you can use as the ground truth. And then ultimately, you scale these type of information to ubiquitously everywhere. So in other words, imagine this. We already did the whole state of Illinois, every cornfield's nitrogen map real time by using this similar technology. And then another aspect that we devote huge amount of effort is the satellite, because ultimately you want to use satellites to scale that up. So for example, this specific technology that we used, for example, there's a lot of the computer vision algorithm that devoted AI plus computer vision to delineate fields. So we not only can do US fields, we go to Ukraine, we can do Ukraine, go to Russia, we can do Russia, or Brazil fields. We can use our technology that translated, that apply to these places. And then, don't know whether this animation can be shown, but okay, yeah, this animation can actually be shown. So, oops, let's see. Try to see whether I can show an animation. Okay, so thank you. So we also developed technology to really map out the radiation information that for every point of 2 kilometers at 5-minute level. And so what this means is that when you grow crops, you need to know the information of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is driven by how much light you receive, and that light information changing every moment. How you capture this information is really critical. We have developed multiple algorithms to address radiation, to address evapotranspiration, to address biomass and photosynthesis. And these are just some of the examples that when you try to tackle the problem of going deep to one field, but for every field, you have to do huge amount of work to really build it up. But once you have these infrastructure and data layers, you stack them together, you start to realize that you can monitor every field, you can actually track every field. And then and another example is that management practice. How do you do that? We use the similar algorithm that we actually do to track every field's tillage practice, cover crop, planting rotation system. And all of this now can be done by our technology. And then also, lastly, while you're collecting all this information, you want to use a model. You want to use the most advanced model to glue the information together, And then, so don't want to bore you about models for the detail, but what I'm gonna just briefly say 2 things is, you hear about all these models, but we have to use the model to address the right problems. And then constraint is also important. So sometimes I say that you have an airplane, you try to compare a model with the airplane. You have all these knobs to tune in your dashboard. And then if you don't properly tune that, you will not get a good result. For an airplane, you even crash if you not properly tune that. So that's what I mean is, can you have the right knobs to tune, as well as do you have the observation for you to tune? And this is how I understand about the model. And so as a modeler, we have a lot of time spent to build one of the best models. So we are not taking the existing model just out of the box, just take it as what it is. We actually use the model, develop the model, and improve the model, working with the best scientists in this area to improve these processes. So when you start to talk about management practice, you say tillage practice, how they impacted the soil carbon. There's a huge processes behind. Does your model have these processes? If not, you couldn't reproduce these results. You could not generate this impact. And then so these are part of the picture, but another part of that is really to constrain the model. A model without constraint versus a model with the constraint. This is simple for this audience to understand. We really need to constrain the model to achieve these goals. And then so complicated model, don't have time to talk about it, but this is the model that we continue improving, and a lot of the processes embedded to validate these model results. And then ultimately, it's about the computation. It's very expensive to do Bayesian inference at even a single field. How do you do that for millions of fields? So what we have done is really based on, one part is using the surrogate model that we have built. So, gonna quickly fly over. But what we have traditionally done is pretty impressive for us when we have to do a traditional model calibration in CPU node for 3 days. Now with the surrogate model and then GPU node, we can conduct that in 3 seconds, 30 seconds. And then other aspect like knowledge-based machine learning is a new area that we spend a lot of time to devoting and try to understand this aspect. And then, some of the results that we want to show. So, multiple applications we use for irrigation, for soil carbon, as well as farmers' application. So all this technology has been licensed to HappyTail, UIUC spin-off company that actually has been grown quite extensively in the past multiple years. And then so with that, I will end my talk and then really appreciate everybody's time.